Good evening. As a preliminary matter, my name is Pete Pecos. I'm the current chair for the Newbury Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Larry Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you, Larry. George Morris.
Yes.
Hello, George. Leslie Matthews.
Yes.
Hi, Leslie. Woody Knight.
Yes.
Hello, Woody. And Mary Stone.
Yes.
Hey, Mary. Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Emily Noble.
Yes.
Hey there. Anticipated speakers, presenters on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Jonathan Hall.
Do you mean Joanna Hall?
Joanna Hall. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my eyes and they didn't connect.
That's okay.
All right.
Joanna Hall is here. Thank you.
Joanna Hall. Dale Myers.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Dale. Mark Rudeau.
Mark Beaudry is here, sir.
Mark Beaudry is here. Tom Woodruff.
Tom Woodruff is here.
Great. Tom Z.
Here, present.
Excellent. Good evening. This is November 17, 2021. Open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until April 1st, 2022. This order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the town's website and which identifies how the public can join. You may join us by going to zoom.us and entering meeting ID 832-7141-3056 or by calling 929-205-6099 and entering the meeting ID when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and the attendees are participating by video and or telephone conference. The meeting is also being broadcasted live through local access cable channel 9 on Zoom and tncttv.org. And the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Material meetings were provided to the board members prior to the meeting for review. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention after you have been called. Before we get started, let me go over a few items of setting the ground rules for this business in our meeting. So I, as the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. For all attendees except board members and staff, please remember to mute your computer with the mute button or your telephone with *6 to toggle to mute and unmute when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones with tablets or cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly and in a manner that will help generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any responses, please wait until I've given the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If board members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. This is not a public hearing, so we will not be having any public comment. After board members have spoken, I will afford, let me see. Okay. With regards to questions, I will see questions and comments through the Zoom raise hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the gray hand that appears. Please ensure that your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the more functions next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in the Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your key your phone keypad. I'll then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click the raise hand function. Each participant will called upon to provide his or her name and address, and then may ask a question or comment. I will afford an applicant or participant or his representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you've been given the floor and your question has been addressed. You will then continue down a list of raised hand columns and afford the participant or applicant an opportunity to speak. Should there be any physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns, it will be noted for the record. And again, the participant, applicant, or representative will have the opportunity to speak to any issues that have not been addressed. All right, just to confirm, since we'll be doing every vote tonight with a roll call. Okay, let's just pop over and see what we have for our agenda. So let's add up here. And so we have appearances this evening. The first will be Eric McLean for Ace Solar, submission of a special permit application for a ground-mounted solar PV installation on 75 Boston Road, which is the old Newbury landfill. Map R36 lot 26 applicant aligned to the town of Newbury.
Right, and just a correction, it'll be Joanna Hall and Dale Myers,
Alrighty then.
which I found out after the agenda was posted.
Sure thing.
Yeah, hi, this is Dale Myers. Sorry, Eric McLean had a previous engagement, so I'm Dale Myers. I'm the Director of Engineering at Ace Solar. And as you mentioned, we're here to submit the special permit application for the ground-mounted solar project at the Newbury landfill at 75 Boston Road. Excuse me. A little bit of background on the project. Ace Solar was awarded the project in 2017 via an RFP process that was initiated by the town of Newbury. A memorandum of understanding was signed between the town relating to the lease of the town property at the landfill for the purpose of development of the solar power system. Since that time, we've pursued and secured an interconnection approval with the local utility. We filed a notice of intent and been granted a project approval from the Conservation Commission. We filed a post-closure use permit application with Mass DEP. We're awaiting final approval on that. And then in terms of a high level kind of description of the system, just so everybody kind of understands what we're talking about here is we're going to be deploying solar modules on portions of the landfill mounds that have southwest and southeast orientations. And the modules will be supported on ballasted racking system, so there'll be no penetration of any type into the landfill cap. The wiring connections of the solar modules running to the photovoltaic electric equipment will be run above grade in areas within the landfill, capped landfill. And then the electrical output from the PV system will be connected directly to the utility, a new utility medium voltage electrical service that National Grid will be installing. And that will be run into the property along the west side of the transfer station. Are there any questions? I can't hear anything here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't. Martha, I was asking if you could screen share the plan, just so everyone could take a peek at that as we're having this discussion.
I had actually thought that Joanna or Dale might do that. Joanna, do you have it there to screen share possibly?
I do. I can do that, sure.
Okay, I just need to give you permission to do that. Oops, sorry. Chose the wrong person here.
You didn't get Jonathan, did you? That was humor.
No, I didn't.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, so Joanna, is there anything that you want to say about it? You're muted right now. I think I may have muted you by mistake.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I can flip through the plan set if anyone is interested to see the various sheets. I can just go slowly. There's 12 pages. And no, there's nothing additional I want to add, other than we believe we submitted all of the required parts to the application package. Those were dropped off in hard copy between yesterday and today, as well as the required filing fee. So we just hope that you all find the application complete, and that's what we're here for tonight, is to get that kind of confirmation.
Okay, Martha, is there anything that you need?
No, I don't believe so. As Joanna said, the application was, the plans were dropped off today and some additional material, or yesterday, and some additional materials were dropped off today. I have reviewed this at various stages along the way, and comments have been addressed, and I believe that responses to those comments were included in the package.
All right, wonderful. I'm just going to see if anybody on the board has any quick questions. So I'm just going to run down. Larry, do you have anything at this point in time with regards to this?
Really nothing to the completeness of the application, but just for my own curiosity. So the array is going to be on the southern slope of the landfill, is that correct?
That's correct.
Will that be at all visible from Boston Road?
No, it's on the other side. Joanna, could you pull that plan up, please?
If you go a few more pages, Joanna, you can see where the solar modules are added. There you go. So these the rectangles here on the south facing side of the landfill, so they will not be visible, sorry, from Boston Road, which runs along the north side.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Great. George?
I have no comments. This is just the submission of the plan, so I'm not ready to talk about it.
Okay, great. Leslie?
The Concom signed off on it, right? But you don't
Re-
have the DEP number? Is that correct?
This went through conservation a while ago. I'm not sure if it's been back more recently. I don't know if it had to come back to Concom. I don't recall at this point in time. But we can.
Well, I was just wondering, I think it was like in just a few months back that they had said there were some issues. The DEP has said there were some issues that needed to be resolved. And is that in connection with the wetlands that sit close to it?
Well, I tell you, when we get into the actual application, we can probably have more further discussion. This is basically a preliminary overview just so that we can accept the application and then set a public hearing. So we'll get all that information in public hearing if you have any questions in regards to that.
That I'm good.
Beautiful. Woody?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Beautiful. Mary?
Nothing right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Then I would entertain a motion to accept this application so that we could set a public hearing date. And I might suggest, if that motion does come, that we would look at the December 15th.
So moved.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Discussion, Larry?
No.
Thank you. Discussion, George?
No.
Thank you. Leslie, discussion?
None.
Wonderful. Woody, discussion?
No.
Mary, discussion?
No.
Great. How do you vote, Larry?
Yes.
Wonderful. George?
Yes.
Great. Leslie?
Yes.
Thanks. Woody?
Yes.
Beautiful. Mary, how do you feel?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So Martha, does that take us to the 15th? And we're going to
Yeah, so
need
just-
time
just-
specific?
Yeah, just to clarify, that's a 15th at 7:15.
15th at 7:15. Okay, wonderful. Okay, Dale John, thank you very much.
Double check my calendar here.
Yeah, 15th at 7:15. So
Great.
Okay.
Wonderful. We look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so let's see what we have going forward here on our agenda. So Mark from Meridian Associates and Tom Woodruff from Governors Academy. This is going to be an informal presentation regarding the proposed modification to an approved site plan for the Parker River Environmental Studies Building and related site improvements, including an addition and the design for a new dock on the property owned by the Governor's Academy at 313 Newbury Turnpike, R15 Lot 11, owner applicant, Governor's Academy. Who would like to address the board this evening?
I can start us off with a little bit of an intro and sort of history of the project and its development. Evening, board, Mr. Chairman, Martha. My name is Tom Woodruff. I'm the Director of Facilities at the Academy, and I'm here with Mark from Meridian, who's been working on the civil engineering and planning aspects of the Parker River Environmental Studies Building project since back in 2016. The original concept for the project started probably 10 years ago. And it was for a facility close to the Parker River where the Academy and faculty and students would have access to a constructed lab space, classrooms, and dock. And the intent for the facility would be to use it as a jumping off point for field research, coastal studies, ecology, marine biology programs that are existing programs at the Academy. In 2016, we really sort of ramped up fundraising efforts for the project and got some momentum, and in parallel to that started planning the programming and the architecture for the building with Flansburgh Architects, Meridian, whom Mark is with, and Consigli Construction, as well as DeRosa Environmental, who handled the environmental permitting for the project. And the basic plan for the building you're all probably familiar with, but it's for about a 6,800 square foot building that consists of a wet lab, 2 classrooms, and a workshop, as well as a small 400 square foot apartment with the intent to use that as sort of a guest space for visiting scientists, hopefully from research institutions who can use it as sort of a jumping off point. Once the program was finally, once the architecture and plan was finally developed, we submitted a site plan review application to the planning board back in 2018, and were issued a decision that August. And in parallel, we worked with DeRosa as well as Mark from Meridian and the Conscom to go through the notice of intent process, and were as well issued an order of conditions that summer for the building and dock. But by 2018, 2019, we had a finalized set of plans and a budget, but soon thereafter, COVID happened. So that put the brakes on things, and we sort of delayed until past spring, when some additional fundraising efforts started and we gained some momentum and came up with a funding plan for the project. It was fully funded, and we have made some minor modifications to the plan that was originally submitted to the Planning Board and Conservation Commission that Mark will go into a little more detail on. But the plan, and we've been working with Consigli Construction, who plans to break ground as early as February. So that's sort of the basic run through of the history of the project, and it's been a long time. We're very excited that it's moving forward, and I think if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to field them now, or as we go along, happy to field them. And Mark was just going to dive into the plans a little bit and the changes that have been made since the original application was submitted.
Hey, just for clarification's sake, and Martha, make sure that I have this correct. The original site plan, did it include the dock, or it did not include the dock?
It did not include the dock. I think that was still in process, although I think that has been, that has gone before the Concom. Is that correct? The dock has, but it did not come before us. And one of the conditions of the planning board's approval was that a separate application be submitted for the dock when the Academy was ready to go forward with that.
Okay, so we have the dock issue, and then we have these modifications.
Right.
Okay, great. I'll let you take it from here.
So Mark, you're set to screen share if you're.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Martha. We met back a couple of weeks ago, Tom and I, with Martha as well as Sam in conservation, and kind of overviewed the project. And decided it would be good to bring it before the board for an informational meeting to update you on the various changes. And as Tom mentioned, we want to bring it back through the board as well as conservation for formal amendments, and as well as inclusion of the dock, so that over the the next couple months to allow, ideally, if all permits are obtained, to allow construction to start in late winter. So the dock was shown, as you'll see in a minute, in kind of schematic form on the plan, with walkways getting down to it. So that was all covered. It was really just the dock itself that that needed to be kind of formalized with you folks. But so I can show all that. So. 1 second here. I don't know why this is not showing up. I had this all loaded.
I can see it.
Oh, you can. Great. Let me just
Yeah.
let me minimize all you folks, and there we go. Okay. So this is,
Is
Enlarge
it
that by
possible for you to make it a little bit bigger?
yes.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do first is just show the high level, where this is Middle Road on the left side of the sheet. And this is the existing entrance driveway that comes into the the maintenance facility buildings. And at the end of that driveway now, as you can see, which is right here, is where the new parking area will be for the environmental sciences building, with a unpaved walkway that goes up to the building that sits up in a bit of a little saddle area between some ledge outcrops, as you can see here, that would then overlook the Parker River, which is down here. So you can see with the building, and I do, Martha, have an overlay plan that shows the changes. So
Thank you.
but just real quick, as far as the to walk the board through the changes for anybody that may not be familiar or remember, there is a desire to have from the building itself a handicap accessible walkway down to the dock area, which you can see on the plan right here. All right, so there is an existing Woods Road cart path running along the it's a great cross-country trail and things like that, running along the river right now, and we will kind of integrate this new pathway with that, and for access to the dock. So there'll be just really very limited parking needed, and we do have these blobs you can see on the plan are landscape material, which the board may remember that the building itself is going to be landscaped, where this we also want to landscape the the site driveway coming in by the maintenance buildings, but that'll be done by the school at a later date. But it's definitely something that the school is interested in. They just weren't able to do it at this time for funding purposes. So so this is the current plan. And you can see what'll be striking, I think, for you in a minute, is what the changes in the pathways. So this is the plan that was approved back in 2018. You can see the entrance driveway is pretty much the same. The parking's the same. The building is a little oriented a little differently, and I can show that in an overlay in a minute. But we don't have it brown shaded, but you can see the length of the walkways here, how circuitous it is to get down to the dock area. And there was some interest at the time in, having the pathway go by the, the stormwater basin features and things like that. And it just got to be just prohibitively expensive. You can see how the dock was depicted on the plan at the time as the future dock. But another important thing that was on the plan at the time was stairs that are going down. We're going down, down straight down the hill to the dock area. what was decided was that the school didn't want, you know, the able-bodied kids to be able to just be running down the stairs where, you know, the you know, people in the you know, disabled wheelchairs, you know, whatever, you know, walking abilities, whatever, would have to take this long route down. They decided they wanted everybody to take the same path, which is pretty cool. And so the stairs were actually eliminated. And so what I'd like to show you now is the overlay of on the overall plan. All right, so you can, now what this does is overlay the old, I shouldn't say old, but you know, the approved plan on the new plan. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference in pathways. The pathways go more to the west towards Middle Road, but this brown route, the currently proposed route is only about, is about 600 feet long, and it is fully handicap accessible at about 4.5% slope. Where this red previously approved route was a little over 1,000 feet long, like 1,040 feet long. So it was quite significantly longer. And as you can see, when I zoom in, all these double lines are not curbing or anything. Those were actually retaining walls. So there was a lot of timber type retaining walls along here to get this all kind of shored up and to be able to grade it at the 4.5%. So you can just imagine that with a 400 plus more feet of pathway and all these retaining walls, it was really quite expensive. So that was all kind of value engineered and modified to the current route. And you can see in red here where the trees, where the stairs went down, you know, to the down to the dock area. We are, as you can notice on this plan, working to snake the pathway through the existing trees to be able to retain as much of the existing trees really as, you know, they're pretty sizable trees, as you can see, you know, some pretty big ones that at the time we were looking at the original route was like, you know, taking down 16, 12, 14, 14s, you know, some pretty good sized trees. So this current pathway actually preserves a lot of the significant trees, which we think is great. The dock got reoriented a little bit, as you can see, to kind of square it up to the river, and but it's generally in the same location. The one thing, a couple minor things, that the parking area didn't change, the entrance approach didn't change. This crosshatched area is actually a grass paver type approach that would allow fire apparatus to come up to the building and actually have 2 fire trucks side by side, what the fire chief wanted. But the speckled is actually the non-paved pathway going up that that's what it's, that, you know, the users are actually going to be able to, that's what it'll look like going through kind of a vegetated area. Over in this corner, you can see there was a lot of retaining walls, these bold red lines that have been value engineered out. And really the only retaining wall is that little bit right there right now. The stormwater basins have remained the same. Looking at the building itself, the footprint, as you can tell, changed a little bit, primarily with this bump out that Tom can speak to that more. But at one point, the architect was trying to get as much westerly view as possible, but it ended up, the decision was made to kind of pivot the building a little bit and rotate it into a more of a northerly orientation that would kind of square it up to the river. You can see if you look, this is the 100-foot riverfront area right here, this gray dashed line. So you can see that it's outside the riverfront. The building is, you might think, is a little closer to the riverfront than it was before, but it's what happened was that a deck was added on this corner, which is really what is getting a little bit closer to the riverfront. But the the real building itself is about the same distance off the riverfront area as it was before. And I think one of the reasons why the building was rotated a bit was to make sure that we had no parts of the structure within the 100-foot riverfront area. So you can see the difference again in red versus the kind of the greenish shade, which is the currently proposed building. So it hasn't changed dramatically. But as mentioned already, the dock was not included in the original submission, because I think the thinking at the time was that we wanted to have that reviewed by conservation first, and that has since been approved, knowing that we would come back at an appropriate time and have that reviewed by the planning board. So we're now, as the chair mentioned, we're now looking to modify the site plan approval, which is still active. It was actually renewed back to be made current back in the, so it has not expired back in the summer. And now we're looking to amend it to the current site plan, building orientation, pathways, etc., and also to include now as part of the amendment the dock. So looking at, I've got another overlay plan here real quick that is what we call our grading drainage utility plan, that just shows a lot more detailed stormwater basins, etc. There's one down here for the parking area. There's one over here for the rooftop area. There's another one down in the saddle between the two wetland areas. All the stormwater will be managed in accordance with DEP stormwater standards. This project has been fully peer reviewed and went through that whole process back in 2018 with the original approvals, and there really hasn't been any changes to the impervious cover, or if anything, the disturbance is less, as we've already talked about. So, we would think that there wouldn't be any issues on any follow-up reviews if the board felt that was necessary and appropriate. One thing that I just wanted to show the board here is that there will be a pumping system out on the float for the dock that will take saline water from the Parker River and bring it up into the building where the wet labs will be, with the aquaria and things like that. And so this plan shows that water line and electric running down to the dock. That wasn't maybe as clear as it could have been on the original design, but originally that was intended to be under the stairway, which I think is why it didn't really show up on the plan, but that was always intended. But now it's clearly shown it can be clearly seen because we don't have the stairs anymore. So, and regarding the dock, this is the plan that was reviewed and approved by conservation. And again, it shows the older pathways that need to be updated. It's kind of a pretty cool dock design, because looking at the cross section right here, there's a fixed portion with these columns that will be we're hoping to be derived from materials on site, with a kind of a cable stayed approach, which is, I think, really neat for that fixed portion of the dock. So definitely will be some good structural engineering education opportunities there. And then coming off the fixed portion will be the gangway, and then going down to the float that will go up and down with the with tide, because Parker River, as you know, is a tidal water body. So, and that there you can see the submersible pump and the water line and all that that was shown in all the approved plans for conservation. So that at this point just needs to be reviewed by the board. There haven't been any real definitive designs on what the materials of the gangway and float are going to be, but so we really don't have that to present. But anyway, at this that would certainly be an appropriate condition of approval if you felt that was appropriate. So speaking of materials, I wanted to maybe hand this back to Tom, and he can maybe just speak a little bit about the building materials and whatnot, and what has been evolved there a bit. So Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, since the original plan was submitted, as Mark said, the footprint of the building has not changed much. It's rotated a little bit to the east, maybe 5 degrees, to keep the deck that we added out of the riverfront area. The one thing to point out is that the height of the building has changed quite a bit. The plan, as originally presented, had a pretty intricate roof line profile, and value engineering, as well as trying to minimize sort of the aesthetics of the building. The roof line was dropped. It at one point was up to over 20 feet in corners, and we brought it down to a uniform 13 plus across the whole building. So it's an entire flat roof. I think it'll be pretty minimal in from viewing it from Middle Road. I don't think it'll glare when seen from the road through the trees. The building materials, the siding, the cladding is to be it's a wood product. It's called Akoya, and it's a chemically altered. It's basically a pickled wood product, very long lasting, natural, and the chemical process isn't like pressure treated. It's not arsenic or any hazardous chemicals. It's basically a sort of a vinegar that they use to pickle it, but it has a 50-year lifespan guarantee with it, and it's natural looking. That's the siding material. There's quite a bit of glass on the north elevation of the building to look out through the trees over the river. Decking materials for the walkway down to the river are all wood. And as Mark mentioned, a lot of the original design it was a stone dust path with significant amounts of retaining walls to keep the side to side, the level of the path. And instead, we're doing a timber walkway, a raised timber walkway that will be set on pilings, not dug pilings, but the pilings, I've forgotten the diamond piers, I think they're called. They're sort of concrete blocks that you set on the earth and then drive pins down into the earth. So there's minimal disturbance to the ground. A lot of natural materials on the walkway, the grass pavers and stone dust path walking up to the front door. As Mark mentioned, the fixed portion is to be a wood system with ideally some of the structural elements harvested from or milled from trees harvested on site. The gangway, I believe, will be an aluminum gangway, and the dock will probably be either aluminum or wood frame dock system with the decking material that's sort of permeable. I've forgotten some of the manufacturers of it, but it's a synthetic material, but you can get it all different colors. I think we'd go with gray, or sort of the most muted color we could find. And it's permeable. It has lots of perforations through the decking to allow sunlight down to the river bottom, to allow eelgrass and whatnot to see the sunlight. And it has good non-skid properties as well. Any other material questions or comments or things I should note?
I think that's a good overview of what's being proposed. So let me just direct this over to Martha. So Martha, do you have any specific questions just from an informational standpoint?
No, I don't. I think Tom and Mark have covered everything that we discussed with when we met with Sam as well. And I think one significant thing to note is, as they both said, is that it appears that there's going to be a lot less disturbance between the building and the river than there was previously.
Okay, great. So I guess the question that we'll have before the board is to whether you want to consider the modifications to the plan as a minor modification or a major modification, And then we want to, whether we want to have the dock be a separate application, or whether we want to roll the application for the modifications and the dock and site improvements into one process. So I'm just going to poll the board to see what their thoughts are on that question. Larry, what's your thought?
Well, I mean, I'd actually defer to the applicant on it, but it seems to me that probably the most expeditious way is to roll everything into one.
Okay, cool. George, let me just ask you your opinion on that.
Yes, the dock was contemplated anyway, and the paths are much better, that layout, so I think it's a minor modification.
Okay. So would you rather have it rolled into one process, or do you want to have it?
Excuse me, yeah, one process is a better way to go.
Okay, cool. I appreciate your opinion on that. Woody, your thoughts? Did I lose Woody?
Woody, you're muted.
We could probably drop down the screen sharing just so we can get the board back, if that's okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I agree with what was just said by Larry and George, and it's a minor changes, and the dock was already proposed for the future, so if we rolled that all into one process, it would go smoothly.
Cool. Leslie, your thoughts?
Yeah, the minor modifications don't seem to impede on too much of anything with the dock already being proposed. Most seems more expeditious to roll it all into one.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Pete,
Yes.
if I may, I do have one other thought. On the dock, is that going to require any additional approvals, like from the state or the Army Corps of Engineers or anything like that?
That's an excellent question, because there's lots of different entities involved in that sort of stuff. And I would have to defer to conservation. Martha, would you be privy to that, or would that have to go through Sam and the extensions thereof?
Mark may be able to answer that, and that's actually a question I had that I forgot, whether this needs Chapter 91 since it's within title.
Yep.
And as well as Army Corps.
Yep.
That is a great question, and I would have agreed with you, Martha, but the DeRosa's office, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, you've had the dialogue with them, but DeRosa's office is pretty confident that there aren't, that Chapter 91, et cetera, other permits are really not needed. So wasn't that the case, Tom?
That was the case. That was the conversation that we had with DeRosa. I think the only outstanding permit thing that they thought was a mooring permit through the harbor master. But I don't remember the specifics, but he did not believe that Chapter 91 was required.
And may I ask how long ago you had that conversation with them, particularly with regard to Army Corps, because I understand that there have been some changes that sort of broaden the Army Corps' jurisdiction.
Yeah, that was back in 2018, I believe.
So I would suggest actually having that conversation again and confirming with him.
Okay, we can revisit it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, absolutely an appropriate condition of approval would be that all necessary approvals are obtained.
Okay, great. Thank you, Larry. And I just want to, Mary, your thoughts as to whether we have this as a minor with a separate application for the dock, or do it all as a one process? Mary?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just asked me.
Yeah, just kind of polling folks to see the direction of how this application should come forward to the board, whether it should be a minor modification with a separate application for the dock, or whether the whole application should include the modifications, including the dock and the site improvements.
Sorry, I apologize. I had to step out for a bit.
It's okay. Yeah.
I think it's important that the dock be treated separately, because it seems to be the biggest change.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So Mark and Tom, you kind of heard the feeling of the board. So we'll leave it to your direction as to how you'd like to go with you. But I think the majority of the board was kind of thinking that it might make sense to have it as one process. Okay.
Yeah, and if I may, I think that makes the most sense. We could just roll all of it into one application, including the dock as well as the modification. So it'll just be one modification to the original site plan review. But, you know, I think it was anticipated that it would require a public hearing. So
Excuse me, Peter.
Yes, Woody.
If I may, I just have one quick question. This dock is seasonal, right?
Yes, the gangway and float would be removed. The fixed portion would stay in place.
Okay, thank you. Because I've seen a lot of ice build up in the river there.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Woody.
Yep.
All right. Tom and Mark, do you need anything else from us just from this informational presentation?
I think what could we anticipate for a hearing date, I guess, Martha?
it kind of depends on how quickly you could get the application to me. And then once it's been presented and accepted by the board, the hearing date would be about a month after that.
Okay. When would you, I'll talk with you offline about that then, and we'll
Okay.
we'll get that figured out.
Okay, yeah, the board meets the first and third Wednesdays of the month, so if we can just
Right.
kind of, you know, target a date and get the process going.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I think we're in pretty good shape to the plans and whatnot at this point to get that resubmitted quite quickly. So yeah, we can talk later on the week and get that kind of mapped out.
Okay, that sounds good.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Mark and Tom, thanks very much for visiting with the board tonight.
Thank you for your consideration. We'll be talking again soon.
Very good.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Martha, we're moving on to new business, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty. So under new business, I see 15 Coleman Road, OSRD, a request for release of Lot 1, which is the farmhouse and barn, and Lot 8, which is the open space from the performance covenant. Martha, any opening comments before we start this, or do you want to just have the applicant present to us?
I did forward the email to you all from Tom with a request for the lot release. And these lots are being held as part of the surety for construction of ways and installation of municipal services to the project. So
Okay.
I'm turning it over to Tom.
Tom, would you like to present anything to the board right now or say anything?
Yes, sure. Again, Tom Zarico. Yeah, essentially, for those of you who have not been by the site recently, you know, we are, all of our utility municipal facilities are in the ground, with the exception of electric, which we have no control over, of course. That's subject to National Grid's own calendar. The street is paved, the curbing is there, about to be installed. Hopefully, I'm planning that it should be done by Friday, but if not, then certainly by the beginning of the week. So we have good access. We've got, you know, street signage, our T sign out there with street names and stop sign, and you know, I think we're in good shape in terms of access and safety once the curbing is pulled off to the side and installed. So that's the status and the update. We do have a customer who is very anxious to get rehabbing the old house and barn. They expect to be living there while they work on that. So we'd like to, of course, before we can transfer that, we need to wrap up our HOA and covenant documents with council and with the board here, and transfer that open space parcel to Greenbelt. I mean, they're ready to receive when we're all ready to transfer.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Just for the board's knowledge, Martha and I did a site visit today with Tom, and we were able to get a look-see. And Martha, just for my clarification, for the board's clarification, as far as Lot 1 goes, we spoke today there's some the work to be done on the septic. Now, do I understand that there was an approval and so the work can begin?
Yes, my understanding from Deb, I spoke with her after we were out on the site, and she said that she did approve the redesign,
Okay,
which Tom described to us today. The original design was for 28 bedrooms, and it's been dropped down to 25.
okay,
And that was approved, so I believe that construction can start.
Just in the way, if I could, just in the way of clarification of that, the system and all of its critical components are in the identical spaces that they originally planned. It's simply a reduction in the planned number of bedrooms, because at least the first 3 homes that we plan to build will be 3 bedrooms rather than 4.
and Tom, now that there's the green light from the health department to go forward, how long will that take you to get that system in place?
Well, hoping that it takes a couple of weeks. As you probably saw today, I mean, most of the components are actually physically there on site. The Caltech systems and piping and everything. The main lines have been run from all of the services are already in place to each of the individual lots, and are run to a main line which runs down to the tank location. So all of that is already in place. It's a question of getting the field in place and placing the two tank structures there. I'm hoping that it only takes a couple of weeks. Obviously, we're anticipating that by hopefully the first week or so of December, so that we can get our Title V certificate, which we would expect to have in order to transfer in any case.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. Martha, let me just pose a question to you. Releasing lot 8, there's no septic involved there, and it's basically going to be going over to Greenbelt. Do you see any problem with releasing that at this time?
No, I don't.
The HOA documents need to be in place, or can we do that without those being in place?
I mean, I think Tom made some reference to those HOA documents being in place, or the covenants being in place, but in terms of the performance guarantee, I don't see any issue with conveying, releasing lot 8 at this point.
If I could jump in on that, Peter, I think it would be best if we have the HOA and covenants, accepted and in place as well. I don't think it's absolutely critical for, at least for that part, but in order to deal with lot 1, of course, those would definitely need to be in place anyway. And the reason for releasing 8 is so that we can release 1.
Right. So the way I'm kind of looking at this, Tom, if that's the case, it might make sense to wait a couple of weeks on the releasing of things, because that'll give legal a time and opportunity, hopefully, to review HOA documents. That'll give you a couple of weeks to get the septic in place for lot 1, now that you have the green light. So I'm kind of thinking that might make the most sense, but let me poll the board to see how they feel about that. Larry, let me start with you.
Yeah, no, I agree with your comments, Pete.
Okay.
I think we're just a bit premature on releasing things.
Okay. George.
Same comments as Larry's, Peter, and as yours. I think you just ought to wait a couple of weeks and that'd be fine.
Okay. Leslie?
I'm in agreement with all that.
Okay. Woody?
I agree with everything that's been said on the release. It's just a couple weeks.
Okay. Mary?
It's unanimous. I agree with Carol.
Okay. Tom, we got a couple of weeks to do some work, but I think we can do it.
Well, I appreciate it, Peter, and I agree completely with that posture. I just didn't want to leave this to an emergency last-minute discussion. I wanted to have at least a dialogue going, so.
Okay, Martha, when does that look like that might be able to pop back on our agenda, or do you want to wait till we get a couple of weeks down the road?
We could, certainly place it on the December 1st agenda, and if we need to pass it over, hopefully we won't, but if we need to, we can.
Okay.
But at least it's there for discussion.
Okay, but that makes good sense, and I think we're all in agreement with that. Beautiful. All right, Tom, thank you for your time today with the site walk. Appreciate it very much. And if anybody else wants to go take a peek, that can be done.
Okay. Thank you all very much. You're welcome to come anytime with or without me. I'm there most of the time. So thanks, folks.
Very good,
Thanks,
Tom.
Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, see you later.
All righty. So with regards to old business, Martha, I'm looking at follow-up for discussions for the draft documents for 15 Coleman, which we just kind of spoke of. So those things are kind of at the legal team, and we're waiting for them to get back to us. Is that right?
Yes, I had a brief conversation with Brian this afternoon, so either he or Lisa will be following up with me on those. So I expect we'll certainly have that feedback
Okay.
in
Great.
time for the next meeting.
Okay, so let's now talk about our proposed discussions that we had. Do we want to go at these one at a time, Martha? Because what I'll do is I'm going to pop down my agenda so I can look at people, and if you can just hit the bullet points as we complete each one. How's that sound?
That's fine. I really have nothing to add to, to any of this.
Okay.
Just as a preliminary note, I have contacted Tracy to confirm when the anticipated date is for the Springtown meeting.
Mhm.
And so as soon as I have that, I will work backwards from there to put together a schedule
Okay.
for the zoning amendments.
All righty. Let me see. Larry, do you have any comments or discussion points on any of the items under old business right now?
Well, last time we had talked about work groups, and I think there was sort of an open question as to whether or not the open meeting law was compliance with the open meeting law was required for those. Martha, I think you were going to talk to town council.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I was out of town and I haven't done that yet, but I will definitely do that.
And if I, go ahead, Larry.
No, that's it. And then I suppose we could, once we know that, we could start think about scheduling the working groups.
Okay, beautiful. Hopefully we can keep our groups. The intention was to keep the groups small with 2 members working with Martha, so that we could get some information back to the board in a timely manner. So that's the intention. Beautiful. Anyone else have any questions or comments on that at this point?
Yeah, I want to ask Martha, in having a working group with 3 or more people in it, wouldn't we have to notice that as a meeting?
Yes, and I think that was the question. If we have a quorum of the board, we would have to notice that as a public
I
meeting.
think that's a safer way to handle it, certainly.
Right. No, we would have to. I think the question was if there were only 1 or 2 people, so it doesn't constitute a quorum, whether it would still have to comply with open meeting law.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So
George.
we will confirm.
Okay, let's see where we're at. So I think we're to the planner director's report. I don't know if you have anything, Martha?
A few things. The health director has been asked to schedule a perk test for the 7 Larkin Road property. I've mentioned that a couple of times. They're looking at a 10-lot subdivision there. So those are scheduled for sometime in the next couple of weeks. And depending on those results, we could be getting some sort of a plan, within the next month or so, I would think. I've been contacted by somebody representing the owner of the 170 Orchard Street parcel. I've mentioned that a couple times. That was the OSRD that was before the board previously and withdrawn. And they're looking at doing a much smaller conventional subdivision. So I'm going to be meeting with him, probably along with Sam and Peter Burnett, to review what they've got in mind. They've done some additional soil testing and determined, as we suspected at the time, that the suitability of soils for septic systems is relatively limited. So they've identified those areas.
Okay.
So that will probably be coming back to the board at some point.
Okay.
I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, because of some requirements from National Grid regarding the interconnection to the solar project, the Azair property, Main Street. looks like there's going to have to be some modification done to that. So that's been in discussion. And I'll be able to fill the board in more on that soon.
Okay, great, wonderful. Beautiful. Let's see what we have for liaison reports. Select board, Leslie.
Okay, the select board met last Tuesday night, and it was a combination of a FinCom and select board meeting to go over the taxes here in town and for the next fiscal year, and to explain how the rate is going to work and the difference between this year and last year. However, even though our rate will go down, property values have gone up, so most people will be seeing an increase in their taxes in the next year. There was an approval for another person on Council on Aging for the, so that was good. They allowed people to get up and make comments about the tax changes. And they spoke about the social media and how they're going to be handling that in the near future. And there was also discussion about Triton, and there's a $61 to $63 million maintenance looming overhead, and to discuss how they will go about financing it. They can get grant money, but it's going to be one of those, you don't get it on the first try or the second try. You might have to go, it could take a while, but they will be discussing it with the rest of the Triton School District.
So this is for improvements at Triton High and the middle
Yeah.
school? Okay.
Triton
Okay.
High Middle School. So it's right now it's about $61 million worth of maintenance and improvement work that needs to be done.
Great. Thank you. Anything else, or is that it?
That's it.
Beautiful? Thanks, Leslie. Larry, do you have anything from ZBA?
ZBA is meeting tomorrow night for their regular monthly meeting. If you recall, at their last meeting, they had an informational presentation from the group that's trying to preserve the Pink House on Plum Island Turnpike. And Martha gave us a rather detailed description of what's going on there, so I won't bother repeating it. But the formal submission and public hearing is tomorrow night. And so that might be of interest. We may see that, I think, at some point for an A&R if everything goes as planned.
Right.
And also there is a special permit finding request on the agenda for 7 Hutchins Road. They want to raise the building there and build a new building in its place, and that's on the island. And that's it for the agenda.
Pete, if I could just back up on one topic that was also discussed at the select board meeting, was the scientific building that would go out into the marsh for a 5-year period. And the select board, which they came before Concom, and Concom approved it, but it'd be a marine biology laboratory, and the select board also approved.
Thank you, Leslie. And Larry, thank you as well from ZBA.
Thanks, Larry.
Conservation. Conservation had a follow-up meeting regarding Cricket Lane. I think when I reported you last, we had just had a hearing the day before. And the question was asked, concerns were raised regarding the application, and the applicant had asked for the hearing to be closed, which required the commission to come up with a decision within a certain time period. And so there was a meeting held last Friday, I believe, and the commission had concerns and didn't feel that the applicant had met the thresholds necessary, and the commission denied the application. So that's what's going on with Cricket Lane. That was that. And what else might be concerning us? I think at this point, that's probably the largest concern for planning board. Martha, MVPC.
Nothing there. The commissioners' meeting is tomorrow.
Great. Is there anything else? Let's see. Our next meeting, Martha, is that going to be
December 1st.
December 1st? Okay. And after that, I think my agenda says adjournment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. That being the case, it's 8:05. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion.
Second.
Thank you, George. There's a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Discussion, Larry?
No discussion, no.
Thank you, Larry. Discussion, George?
None.
Discussion, Leslie?
No.
Discussion, Woody?
None.
Discussion, Mary?
No.
And how do you vote, Larry?
Yes.
Thank you, George.
Yes.
Wonderful. Leslie?
Yes.
Wonderful. Woody?
Yes.
And Mary, how do you feel?
Yes.
Beautiful. If that's being the case, then I believe we're adjourned.
Is the chair in favor?
The chair is in favor.
Nah, he wants to hang.
All righty, everyone, thank you very much. Martha, thanks very much.
Thanks,
Everyone have a good
Martha.
evening.
Nice
Hey,
Pete.
Peter.
Evelyn, Emily, have a good night as well.
Thank you all.